The game is about to start. A reminder, this is our final match in the Last Chance qualifier. Literally the final chance to qualify to the main event. One of these players will make it, and the other, unfortunately, will have to try again next year. Time control is the same as it has been throughout the Esports World Cup. It's 10 minutes, no increment.
Dear viewers, write your suggestions in the chat. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Is it going to be experience in the person of Alexander Grischuk, who is going to take down this match, or Andrew Tang? And as we speak, Anna, this match is officially given a green light. We do see some sort of a Rai Lopez offbeat line played here by Alexander Grischuk, who plays with white. And again, we have a rather unusual pawn structure because white has just given up his queenside bishop to create double pawns for black at the queenside, but black at the same time is relying on the strength of the bishop pair.
Exactly, that is the dynamic difference here. The imbalance in the position, better pawn structure for white and easier development by a pair of bishops for black. We are about to see whether Andrew... Actually, we're going to swap the names. We have the cameras, I think, in the right spot, but we'll swap the names as soon as we can. And it will be now a question for Andrew whether he's going to develop his c8 bishop already, or what he's doing is placing the rook on e8. That knight could land on f8 if it needs to drop back to open up the diagonal. You just need to be careful about the e5 pawn, because the knight is the protector of that pawn at the moment.
Yeah, I mean... definitely this knight maneuver to e6 is in the cards. How do you protect the pawn on e5 first? There could be several ways to do this. The bishop could defend it through either f6 or d6 square, or maybe even position it somewhere on c5. There's many opportunities. If we speak about the Grischuk's last choice, king h1, I think he's just preparing this sort of a king set attack with f4, and just in case walk away from the long diagonal here. Bishop c5 played by Andrew makes perfect sense, but by doing this he also willingly gives up the bishop pair.
He does give up the pair of bishops, says I would rather trade that e3 bishop and have that square for my knight so that the development at least becomes easier. Once the knight is on c5, it opens up the diagonal for the c8 bishop that could finally come out and threaten to go to g4 to target the f3 knight of white. I'm just noticing, by the way, that the beautiful colors here as well. Grischuk with the white pieces and his white t-shirt, Andrew Tang with the black pieces, black t-shirt. It's almost like it was scripted, but it's a best of 4. They both will have 2 games with the white pieces, 2 with the black pieces. Right now, it's perfect for us to make it easy to know who is playing with which color. I hope they change t-shirts after this game just to keep it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, Anna. Wait until they play the next game, of course. We might get really confused who is playing with what. But anyway, in this game, knight g3 was just played by Grischuk here. He's not trading on c5, and I suspect it has something to do with the plan, Anna, that you mentioned. This would allow black to activate his ducks with bishop first, and also the move knight g3. It makes perfect sense because he's pretty much aligning all of his remaining pieces for a potential king set attack. And he says, if you want to take on e3, do it, but it's also going to open up the f file for my rook at f1.
It will open up the f file. It will strengthen the central control of white thanks to those doubled pawns. Doubled pawns right now for black, but it could also be then doubled pawns for white once the pawn is on e3, and that's a central pawn. So I think black is reluctant to do so. That's why f6 has been played, getting ready to jump away with the knight. But again, because of the tension between the bishops, one player or the other either has to take or move that bishop out of harm's way, because if you move the knight away, that's way too damaging for your pawn structure.
And again, very interesting decision here by the American Grandmaster. He decided not to trade the bishops. He said, I'm not going to help you open up the f-file here. Instead, I think my ducks with bishop belongs really nice here on f8, protecting the king, and then maybe reroute the only knight typically to e6. I think it's like a common rule, Anna, for these positions. If you put the knight on e6, it just guards so many critical squares in the position. And here comes Grischuk with his active plan at the king side. Knight f5 within the striking distance against the black king, and g4?
Wow. Suddenly the position is becoming a lot wilder, and this is a very aggressive approach. You love to see it. The knight on f5, now supported by both the e4 and the g4 pawns. It is weakening the white king. You are pushing a pawn in front of your own castled king, but Grischuk is claiming that the opening of the g file matters much more. He wants that flag for his rook. So now it's really discouraged to take the f5 knight. But if you don't take it, that knight is a scary piece.
It's really difficult to get rid of then. Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe there's a room for g6, but what if? What if white plays rook g1 and sacrifices the knight? This might be an opportunity, also something that both players have to consider. And now, Anna, I finally understand why Grischuk played king h1 a couple of moves ago. He was going for this plan all along. He was going to put the knight on f5 to play g4, and with this move order, he tricked everybody, including me.
He has tricked everybody, and I think it's also something that Andrew Tang might have not expected, and he's trying to see how to defend, but this is the reason why he's falling behind on the clock. He started thinking longer because it is looking really dangerous on the king side right now. The f5 knight, so strong. It was really discouraged to take it because of the opening of the g file, and the rook comes to g1 anyway. You might see the pawn being pushed to g5 to open up the g file.
I just wish somebody would teach the chess engines to explain concepts like white is attacking here, white has initiative, because again, we're looking at the relation bar, it says black is tiny bit better. But we're looking at this position, we immediately sense that if somebody has the initiative, it is Alexander Grischuk, because all of his pieces are aligned for a potential kingside attack, and there you go. Knight f4 was a mistake here by black, because white can take it here, play queen e2, and this pawn on f4, Anna, it's going to be really difficult to defend.
And the reason why Andrew ends up making a mistake is because of how difficult his position was. I agree with you that the computer, cold-blooded, always finds the perfect moves. But for grandmasters even, this position was very much more favorable from White's perspective, from all that pressure. And now Grischuk capitalizes on the mistake of Andrew, captures on f4, attacks the pawn. And how do you hold on to that pawn?
This is getting really unpleasant. I mean, you can, of course, defend the pawn. You can play bishop d6 and defend it, but you see immediately the problems. I mean, white is going to play g5 at some point, open up the g file, double the rooks, and go after your king, and then you start to have some doubts. I mean, do I do this? Because the g5 threat seems to be a very serious threat, and maybe I don't really care about the pawn on f4 at all, but what's the other choice? Maybe play g6, push back the knight, but what if? What if Alexander Grischuk sacrifices it and, for example, takes the pawn on f4?
He's more than capable of doing that, giving up material for a menacing attack. That's why Andrew is pausing here and tries to figure out what's his best chance. He knows that his position is looking really dangerous here. Is it giving up the pawn on f4 that will give him better chances if he gets to activate his pieces in the meantime? Is it to try to chase the knight away, as you said, Arthurs? But that invites the sacrifice of a knight. g5 played by Andrew Tang to hold on to the pawn, but that means that this knight on f5 is very much forever in that position. You're going to have to take it with the bishop at some point, and h4 immediately played by the three-time World Blitz champion to try to open up the king side.
That was a very risky move, and I'm pretty sure that Andrew was looking at this move for a very long time, trying to assess the situation. I'm not sure I like it, but his position already was really difficult to start with. Now the problem for black is that he did protect the pawn on f4, he did stop white's idea to push g5, but this comes at a price. You weaken the king, the knight on f5 is a beast, and if at some point black is going to take it, of course Alexander Grischuk is going to take the g-pawn, open up the g file, line up all of his pieces for a killing attack, and this last move, rook g2, Anna, it suggests that white is still gonna go for this attack, double the rooks at the g file, potentially slide over the rook here to h2. I mean, this attack looks so promising here.
incredible play by Alexander Grischuk, and that's the reason why Andrew is spending so much time. It's already over 4 minutes, is that? 3.5 minutes of time advantage and a very dangerous looking, menacing attack that Grischuk is building up. I love this rook g2 move to free the g1 square for the other rook, bring this rook over to h2. So even though the king is on h1 in the same spot where the rook wanted to go, with this rook lift, you're gonna get your rook to the h5 and you will have the other rook coming in as well. It's looking incredibly difficult for Andrew Tang to defend, who is really falling behind on the clock. 4 minutes of time advantage and a menacing, very promising attack for Alexander Grischuk.
Also, the problem of his position, okay, objectively, he's having a worse position, but he still needs a plan. And I'm not seeing it, Anna. Where is the plan? Because you're supposed to organize some counterplay, which is where exactly? I suppose somewhere at the queen side. King h7? I'm not
Grischuk
sure.
sits up. He is a bit surprised by this choice of Andrew stepping into the file where the rook is heading anyway.
But maybe there was just no better choice there for black, because I was trying to figure out, is there something that Andrew can do at the queen side, and nothing really made any sense, because white can simply ignore whatever is happening there, and all of white's moves are incoming very naturally. There you go, doubling the rooks here. I think the next move, Anna, we might see rook sliding over to h2, position itself for a potential x-ray against a black king on h7, and maybe black is just lost already here.
Really tough position for Andrew Tang, who does not find a convenient way to defend. I was wondering whether his king will end up on g6 because it's heading in that direction, but either case, whether on h7 or g6, that king is not looking good. He's pushing c5, but it just seems too slow. The white queen is already on c3, may not have even been the top move of the engine, but it's very natural to try to bring the queen in through that diagonal.
I think that black's idea here is to recapture on g5 with the f pawn. Somehow hold on to this position, protect the pawn on h6 with all his might. Maybe the rook can slide over here, defend this pawn, but to be honest, it feels like there's going to be a tactical solution to this. So white most likely at some point is going to take on g5, put the rook on h2. Maybe there's going to be some sort of a sacrifice on g5. When you see so many pieces surrounding the opponent's king,
bishop g7, it looks like there can be tactics already, or at least a completely winning position for Grischuk. 5 extra minutes on the clock and the winning attack.
I think you can just take already on g5. The point is, takes, knight takes on g5. There's going to be a checkmate on g7. And so black cannot accept this. And this is a game for Andrew Tang just to forget. Somehow he did not get in the game here. Grischuk simply plays rook h2. He could have forced things with h takes on g5. But also look at the clock situation, Anna. 1 minute and 30 seconds here. Grischuk is cruising towards a victory.
He's dominating on the board, and also the clock situation is very worrisome for Andrew Tang. It's probably the biggest time advantage we have seen in the entire event. And here, unfortunately for Andrew, time is not even the worst factor for him, but the fact that his king is under a huge attack. All the white pieces are looking at the black king, and Grischuk is calculating, where's the final blow? Can he sacrifice? How do you open up the king's side?
There gotta be some kind of a forcing continuation here. Maybe there's some sort of a break in the center, like takes, play e5. Also, I'm looking at the queen move, queen c4 check, controlling this long diagonal. If only black would somehow trade the queens, his position would be pretty terrible, but maybe somehow salvageable. But if all of white's pieces, including these two pawns, are lined up against the black king, things never really work well. And that's why Grischuk here is going to spend like 1 minute or 2 minutes, whatever it takes. There you go. H takes on g5 was just played. I think he has figured it out.
The f-pawn takes back, queen check, the king goes to f8. Where is the crushing blow? It is by pushing the pawn to e5, threatening f6.
What a powerful game by him. And Andrew's position just collapsed very quickly after the American Grandmaster played this move g5, which I didn't really like to start with, but his position already was very difficult here. Now white can take the pawn on h6, try to expose the king, and it's simply leading to the inevitable mate.
It's leading to mate, and Grischuk is spoiled for choices here. Is he going to capture the pawn simply with the rook, as you're suggesting? Is he calculating something else? He says that's the most straightforward, and it's true. Very powerful move. The rook is entering black's position. The g5 pawn is hanging too. All the white pieces are heading toward the black king.
I just love how concentrated he is. Never let your guard down. Even though you're completely, look at this, he's so concentrated, currently like zoned, like concentrated, focused on this position because he feels there's gotta be a win right there. So where is it? Treat it like a puzzle. Where's the solution? Is it a tactical shot? Do I sacrifice an exchange on g6, or I just play positionally, maybe put the rook on g6, rook at h7, or I just keep pressing?
Rook a7 threatening checkmate is his choice, and yes, he is fully focused. He's not letting his guard down. The position is completely winning for Grischuk, and yet he knows the stakes are so high, he cannot afford to make a mistake. In fact, Andrew Tang says, I have seen enough, and he resigns. This has been a beautifully executed attack by the three-time World Blitz champion Alexander Grischuk, who